All right. Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, creatures of all ages. I feel like I couldn't see the forest for the trees because there is a group of questions that I am consistently answering for my clients and for my friends, and I don't know why I hadn't talked to all of you folks about it. It's about marriage in Brazil, and it's awkward because this is one of those things that has been just one of the most talked about subjects that I have with people, and I still hadn't done a video on it, and I totally forgot how many people are going to need this information. I'm here to, let me back up. First, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We recently hit the 2K mark on the subscribers list. Next up, my goal is 2.5. Thank you to everybody who's been sharing this content on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, same name, YusefWateef. I can't tell you how, when I really started this YouTube thing with my friends and I just having these conversations about whatever went through our minds, that it would grow into something that became a place where so many people found relatable subjects. And I'm glad that I'm able to maintain that level for you. And I'm here for you guys. The game has been good to me. The game has truly, truly been good to me. And when I talk about marriage in Brazil, I'm not talking about what the, boa noite. Be sure to check out 3Ds to Success. He's got a great channel. And as always, BK from the Rockies makes sure to remind everybody to like, share, and subscribe and comment. Those are the things that keep the channel going. These are why my channel pops up in so many other places, so we can keep growing and having bigger and better conversations. And I've got some other people and things coming up for you guys. Make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you click subscribe. I remember back before you had to hit the bell. Now you have to hit the bell. Click subscribe. I'll be happy with that, because that's how we grow, and that's how we get so much quality information. We talk about three things. We talk about a lot of international living stuff, not just my life in Brazil, but the guests and friends I bring on from everywhere around the world. We talk about money, which is my favorite subject. We also talk about a lot of social issues. We talk about things that are not necessarily easy to talk about. Yori 666, what's up to you with that clever avatar? American Brazilian, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate the flattery. Please share this on Facebook. And Weird Little Dream, start a matchmaking service. Nah, I don't want to do that. That's, unless I know two people, I don't really want to do that. Marriage in every country is a little different, and we're not here to talk about the dynamics between the man and the woman in Brazil. Maybe we can have another conversation about that, a different conversation about that issue. But what I want to get to you is, I want to talk to you about the concept that we're dealing with now on the relationship between the man, the woman, and the government. That's the important part. That's where a lot of people get confused. I wanted to share with you some information that you may not know how to dig up, and I'm not here to give you, if anyone who is not a technical client of mine, this is not advice for you. These are just things that I want you to be aware of and that I talk to my clients about and I help them through. When you get married in Brazil, there is no one way to get married. A lot of people don't know this, but one of the things you have to do before you get married is decide with this person how you're going to get married and what the split will be if anything happens. And there are about 4 different areas we're going to go down. So first, I'm going to tell you about this one. It's the partial property ruling. This is one option you can have. Boom. Let's see. Jointly to the couple. I'm going to copy and paste it here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. The partial property ruling, the most common system of law for marriage, property owned by each individual prior to marriage remains their personal property, as does any property purchased during the marriage using resources or rights which date to before the marriage, such as an inheritance. However, any property purchased after the wedding using resources arising from that period, well, once the resources that arise from that period of the marriage belongs jointly to the couple. What that means, to the best of my understanding and the way that the law is written that I've helped my clients with, is it's the most common is what we get after the marriage, we split. Now, because so many people get married young, and we can have a side conversation about this, I believe that men should not be allowed to make major life decisions until after the age of 30. That means you shouldn't be allowed to own a gun. You shouldn't be allowed to have a credit card. You shouldn't be allowed to get married. You shouldn't be allowed to buy a house. All those things, because as a man, you're really not done cooking until you're 30. And a lot of people find that awkward. And I can tell you as a 43, I'll be 44 this year-old man, that if men waited until after they'd had 30 years of life experience, only 10 of which arguably is as a quasi-adult, the decisions they made later would be much better. They would be more mature when they made the decisions about their money, and they would have a history with women that would allow them to know who they could marry. Because I don't say they shouldn't have women before 30, but they should not have any formal relationship with a woman that extends past maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, or casual sex until 30, because that's the point when you know you're getting married, not out of a sense of I'm new to the world and this is new to me and a pretty girl is new to me, I should get married with her. But societies fall apart when men and women start making educated decisions. Hey, how you doing? Vote with your feet. I like these litigious conversations. Weird Little Dream said, I think men are not done cooking until age 35. Here's the thing. I would entertain that argument if anyone wanted to make a case. I would listen to it, and I may have to disagree, but I'm willing to listen to that. Now, when I say these things are important, the reason these things are important is because you have to do these things as you get married. You can't decide later. And as I'm going to get to towards the end, the laws aren't the problem. So I'm going to go to another form of marriage. It's called the community property ruling, whereby the property of both partners, no matter what they had before or after the marriage, remains the joint property of both partners. And a couple that wants to get married under this system start their marriage process by signing a prenuptial agreement at the civil registry office. Now, be careful. You're going to hear that word prenuptial and assume it means the same thing in Brazil that it means in America. It doesn't. Prenuptial just means before you got married. That's it. What this prenuptial agreement means is whatever you had before and whatever you get afterwards, no matter what, you split. If you're okay with that, that's fine, but don't get married without knowing what all these options are. Don't get married in Brazil without knowing all your choices. And we're going to get into the ramifications of these choices shortly, because, nothing is free. Success isn't easy or free. Let's move to another one. The separate property ruling, all property acquired either before or after the marriage remains the property of the individual. A couple planning to marry under this system must start their marriage process by signing a prenuptial agreement at the civil registry office. The separate property ruling is compulsory for those over 60 years of age. What that does is it stops some person who's had a lifetime of acquiring success and material gains from being in a situation where they could be taken advantage of. They acknowledge that there is elder abuse, that someone could want to marry a man or a woman specifically to take advantage of what they've acquired throughout their lifetime. It happens. And don't go thinking I'm just talking about, some money-hungry woman. I've seen men and women both pull this nonsense in every country I've been in. There's someone who's trying to just scam someone who's lonely out of their cash through marriage. Now, the fourth and the last one we're going to go over before I really want to talk about the whys of these things, it's called the final partition of acquisitions. All property acquired before or after the marriage remains the property of the individual, as in the separate property ruling. However, On separation by divorce or death, all property which was acquired during the marriage will be divided fairly. Slightly different. Let me read that again. The final partition of acquisitions, all property acquired either before or after the marriage remains the property of the individual, as in the separate property ruling. However, on separation by divorce or death, all property which was acquired during the marriage will be divided fairly. So there's a slight difference there. There's a serious distinction there. Why are these things important? You would think that if we have 4 clearly labeled methods of marriage, that people would make great decisions and no one would have anything to cry about later, but that's not true. What generally ends up happening is that one person, usually a man, looks at these and says, you know what? I think I should go for, which one is it? This one. This is the one I advocate for. It just says you came in with what you came in with. Anything you get during the marriage on your things are yours. And upon divorce, you get what you came in and what you gained during the marriage. Now, here's the problem. I have listened to men, generally under 30, who may be military veterans, 10-year work history, successful, other things. But when it comes to specifically relationships, they're not done cooking. Their brain hasn't gotten to the point where they realize how they feel. And you've heard me have video conversation about this. A man's feelings don't matter. The successful men never use their feelings in making a decision. When I tell them, well, let's do it this way, they say, well, I can't say that to her, or she'll think, I think that she's only marrying me for my stuff. So let me get this right. You're close enough to this woman to marry her, but you're not close enough for her to trust you enough to say, you know what is mine, and what's yours is yours, even if we get divorced, because then she'll be angry. I've had that conversation so many times. Generally, they don't listen. Generally, they go in happy. And here's the reality. Just because people get divorced doesn't mean it was a bad relationship. I've had relationships come and relationships go. Some have lasted, under a year. Some have lasted multiple years. Some of them have been part of non-conventional relationships. But the reality is, when you don't put someone in a situation where money factors into the decision, the relationships are much better. Because there's no law against giving someone what you want them to have. There's no law against a man saying, hey, I want to take care of this woman. Even after we get divorced, I'm going to buy her a car, or, I'll pay off the house for her. But the obligation, now, to be clear, we need to scratch the record. All this shit doesn't matter if you have a child. Once you have children, you are bound. I want to be clear about that. These are things I'm talking about with two people who do not. Boa noite. Rolo Tomasi, thank you. I'm flattered if this is Rolo Tomasi. Can't see your avatar. I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad that you watch my channel. And if I'd be honored if you could come by and spend a few minutes with me chatting. I hope this isn't someone baiting me with his name. Absolutely. I've been married and divorced in the United States and Brazil. However, I have a career working in the financial industry that taught me to behave differently. You see, I was born a blue-collar person. And I'm giving Rolo the down and dirty on this because I think this is someone who, if this is actually him, he's someone who can really dissect this. When I learned the financial industry that I spent about 9, almost 10 years in before I retired at 37, I learned to not behave as a have-not. See, my family were blue-collar workers, but I got into an educated situation and started a white-collar job. I look at marriage the way haves look at marriage. It's a strategic maneuver. You see, I talk about haves and have-nots. I don't use rich or poor because there's always going to be someone with more money and less money. But the person who looks at life and is a have, they're the people who make educated financial decisions. They can save their money at minimum 6 months ahead. They can invest more, 10% or more of their income. And they don't look at the things they do with their money through an emotional lens. If anything, they hire a professional, which is what I did, to show them the right things they do with their money. I had so many young businessmen come to me and talking about, I've been investing with you for about 5 years now. I want to take some money out of this cash value account. I want to take some money out of this mutual fund, and I'm going to use it for my wedding. And I would say, what do you mean? Well, yeah, you remember a while back, I told you I was going to meet this woman after our meeting. Thank you, BK. Thanks for being on top of that. And I would advise these young men who are generally very successful, very young, I would advise them not to get married. And they'd say, but why? You don't even know her. And I say, that's why I can give you this information from a pure heart. The only people that can really afford to get married from an emotional state are poor people, people who are have-nots. Once you've acquired something in life, you have to guard we live in a cutthroat capitalist world. I love capitalism. Capitalism worked for me. The game has been good to me. And I have no complaints. But I always saw the relationships that I had, if I'm going to do anything on paper, it's a business relationship. Now, to be clear, the women who understand this are few and far in between, but they're out there. I never want anybody to walk away from this video thinking YusefWateef said don't get married. That is not what I'm saying. I think some people should get married if they want to, and some people should not get married if they don't want to. Whatever floats your boat. What I'm saying, it's kind of like have sex as much as you want to, but wear a condom. I'm not against sex. I'm against reckless sex. Again, get married if you feel that close to someone. I'm not saying don't get married. I'm saying don't get married without having the correct financial structure in place. Now, in Brazil, these things work. In the United States, it's a totally different kettle of fish. I still talk to my friends who are attorneys, who are in the divorce business, and I can tell you that arguably the worst mistake a successful man can make is be in a marriage. Because the average man doesn't understand the level of liability that he's at. Let's see, who is married to the divine institution created by God for the good of man and woman. Pastor Larry Stacker, I don't know you. This may be your first time here. I'll give you some pushback on that. Let's do it this way. I believe that as an atheist, I believe so strongly in my beliefs that I will let anyone believe in any deity they choose, and I will never, ever bemoan or demean someone for their belief in any gods. What I will say is that if you're making real world decisions based on faith, which is simply the belief in something that has not been proven, then you are a foolish man. Any man who makes a decision based on how they feel or what they think and not what they have witnessed. See, I'm just going on what I have seen. Any information I bring to the people here at this channel, it's something I have seen, something I have put my hands on so that I can come forward and put under my name publicly, this is what I believe, and able to have a conversation about that. So if you believe that marriage is a divine institution, then I think that's great for you. Because remember, these rules aren't written differently for ministers. These rules are not written differently for clergymen. A man can be a devout clergyman, get married under the wrong situation, and lose everything, including the things he's benefited from in his clergy. Oi, boa noite, querida. Como vai? So to dissect this, you would divorce them. How much did it cost you? I think $200 US for the paperwork. Let's call it $300 US, just to round it up in case I'm wrong. In about an afternoon of signing. Black Torch says, protect your assets in a family trust in foreign like Panama or Grand Cayman Islands. I understand where you're going with this, Black Torch, but I'm going to tell you where I give you a little pushback. I give you pushback because why should you have to go that far? Why should you have to take so many extra steps when we can simply protect ourselves in the beginning? When I was a young man, before I started working with money, I wondered why so many successful men were getting married, not in the United States, but then returned to the United States to live. Well, with their wife sometimes, or sometimes they'd stay abroad. The answer is, in other countries, when they got married, they had much stricter laws that a man could use to protect his assets, or a rich woman could use to protect her assets. So I can tell you, I don't know anything about how to use Panama or the Grand Cayman Islands. If you are an expert or a subject matter expert in that area, I'm more than happy to have you on to discuss that with us. But I can safely say to you, that's like taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, when with far less energy you can protect the things you have. Do loving couples often cohabitate in Brazil without marriage? Yes. Yes. In Brazil, some people get married and some people don't, and some people just decide they're going to live together. Just like the United States. That's a common thing. Let's go to Black Torch again. He said, because prenups in the United States are useless. I have enough friends who are attorneys to tell you that is so true. That whenever they hear someone talk about a prenuptial agreement, they know that's money in the bank for them, because the average man doesn't really know that those things can be torn through like a paper tiger. You know, those are things that, but here's what upsets me. There are so many people who find out how difficult this is. They find out that the prenups don't really work, but you know what? They never go up and tell the young men coming behind them that they don't. They might tell a few that they know, but I always wonder, why don't these guys say, hey, listen, here's something other men need to know. Let me say it again. People don't want to tell you when something wrong has happened. And I don't know why that is. I try to share my losses as well as my wins. Brother BK made it a point to pop up on my Patreon. My Patreon is where we do a lot of, my Patreon is a lot less fun, more business. This is where I bring businessmen in from other areas that talk about how they grew what they do. This is where I bring in subject matter experts. I won't bore you with the details. I will say that the link is going to be here. I'll actually put it again and I'll say less fun, more business. And these are I won't go through the self-masturbatory trip of reading through what I do here, but the reality is I do everything from public posting to some people simply need one-on-one coaching. My Patreon is less fun, more business. Money. So when you go to my Patreon, I don't want people to think that the Patreon is going to be as happy-go-lucky as we are here. It's not. When you join the Patreon, you should probably buy a notebook and a piece of paper, because I'm trying to give people far more value. If someone's giving me 20 bucks a month, I want them to walk away thinking, wow, I really got over on Wateef. He gave me so much game. He brought in so many great people to help me with pieces of information I didn't have, that I feel like I'm taking advantage of them, because that helps me. Does marriage vary regionally and in terms of class in Brazil? Regionally, I can't really answer that question. I haven't lived in the totality of Brazil. What a lot of people don't understand, let me see, and this is something interesting that a lot of people don't know, is, let's see, where to go. I have a little chart here. I have to pull it up. What a lot of people don't know about Brazil is that it's larger than the United States or the same size, depending on how you count. So regionally, I mean, you would have to live in a lot of places to be able to say, you know, what regionally happens in Brazil. Class, yes. I can tell you from working with money long enough, class is not the same as money, although people will see a tight parallel. The thing about class is this. Class is generally made up of a bunch of people who are unapologetic about putting the needs of their family and themselves first legally. A lot of the people that I worked with were trashy people. However, they were of a class that told them, I need to hire someone like YusefWateef who can help me. And I'm gonna tell you what I did as a financial professional. You ready? I'm gonna tell you what I did as a financial professional. I showed people how to pay less in taxes legally, how to pay not nearly as much in taxes legally. I'm actually going to give you guys one of my favorite podcasts I like to give people when they ask questions about class. I'm going to put this here. Let's see. It's called America's Secret Case System, and it was done on cracked.com. Let's see. Give you an excerpt. You guys know I can't talk and type at the same time. And I'm going to hit the link here. I want everybody, when you're done with this, when you're done listening to this, I want everybody to go listen to this. And it came out in 2 separate pieces. America's Secret Case System. We tend to think of the class system as a money thing. Rich people are high class, poor people are of a lower class, and those things can change with the purchase of a lottery ticket or a bad financial investment. That's not true at all. This is a very, very good podcast that can explain America's case system in a very down-to-earth way. Very down-to-earth way, you know. Let's see. So yeah, Ian, when you ask, does it vary regionally? I don't know. Does it vary in terms of class? Absolutely. 100%. Marriage is absolutely a class-based issue. Generally speaking, people who have less education and less financial opportunity, and I don't mean rich, I simply mean access to education or even a decent education, those people tend to get married less and have children out of wedlock more. There it is, found it. So when you say regionally, a lot of people don't know that this is Brazil. When people ask questions about Brazil, I say you got to remember, depending on how you turn the country, it's either the same size or bigger than the United States. So when you ask, what is it like regionally? I think we would do better looking at if we could get a cross section of what it was like as far as the class system and how it works. Again, we should have a discussion on class. I think we could have a discussion on class. I'd like to invite some of you up for that, because one of the things I learned working with money, one of my clients told me something very important. He says, what a lot of people born blue collar will do if they will chase class. He said, the thing about class is if you ask us, can you become part of a class? We'll always say no. One of my most successful clients told me, always chase the money, because class doesn't really matter. Class is something that people who aren't in a certain position in life use to justify things. When you have the money, your class doesn't matter. In capitalism, you either have the money or you don't. I chose to be a have in life. You know, I'm ruthlessly capitalist. I run my own business. I outsource, you know, a lot of my material to countries where I can pay less in labor. I'm all that shit. So if you want to, you know, feel free to catch me in the comments. Meanwhile, I retired at 37 and I spend my days enjoying life in Brazil, lifting weights, doing YouTube. Yes, it is big. It's huge. So what I'm getting at here is that if you come to Brazil and you find that person that you want to love, investigate those 4 options. Find the one that is best for you in the long term, not for you two as a couple, but best for you in the long term, and then go to your partner and say, here's how I want to get married. If that person says, no, I should have access to your funds after we're married, well, that should be a red flag. The trick is, most people, and by people I mean men, won't have the courage to actually ask the question. Most men would rather risk their financial future and ruin rather than say to a woman that they love, I want to protect my long-term assets. When in fact, one of the most powerful traits you can show her is that I look out for me, so you can always trust me to be here to look out for you. Hey, thank you for everybody watching this. Hit the like button. Don't just hit the like button, share this. Share this on Facebook. Share this on your Twitter and your Instagram. You know, and I really, really appreciate that so many of you came. As far as earlier, when I talk about why I had to become an expert in these things, for those who don't know, I run an expat relocation services business. And what I do is I help people who want to come to Brazil legally do the paperwork. My company works through all the things that someone needs to do to come to Brazil, get situated, get their social security number, all those things. Well, that's what we do. And let me do this. I'm also going to put this here. I'm going to say, find me on LinkedIn, add me on LinkedIn. I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to share here so that you guys can see. And when you go to my LinkedIn page, my resume, yes, it's impressive, blah, blah, blah. Don't look at that first. Actually, you know what? We're going to look at this first. We're going to go out of order. This is not what I want you to do. You know, as a legal permanent resident of 5 years in Brazil, I guide my clients through every level of relocating to or visiting Brazil. Together with our Brazilian partners, we provide flexible, smooth, and individualized relocation services, including but not limited to. And then you go through all the stuff that letters you probably haven't heard of unless you wanted to come to Brazil. But then I tell people to go all the way down and look at the part that is clearly labeled recommendations. These are where business professionals under their own name and their own company say, yes, YusefWateef is legit. Yes, you should hire YusefWateef. He's awesome. This is where the money comes in, because I tell people, don't do business with anyone who doesn't have references. Don't let your history be a mystery. I can say that anyone, and I've had clients do this, I've had people on my recommendation reference list tell me I got a strange email from someone asking who you said you were, and it turns out a lot of clients will vet me before they hire me. They'll contact my list of references and say, hey, did you really write that? Is he really professional? Before they give me their hard-earned cash. And I'm good for that. I'm good for that. I'm really good with that. So let's see. Let me go back up. Black Torch, mirror the business deal, contract. Yes, exactly. That's what I've been trying to say. You said it in fewer words. Trade D, that's one hell of a name to pick if that's not yours. What's the average upper middle family? Upper middle, let me think. This isn't really what we're into today, but I'm going to give you, I have a, I had a chart here that showed the average working class here. It's not as much as you think. Brazil income pyramid. I'm going to try to find it on, let's see. Because there is an excellent chart that I saw once that I thought I had saved, but I don't see it here, and I'm going to have to go find it. Hold on, stay with me, people. Okay, let's go with this one. I'm going to open this in a new tab so I can show you guys. Now watch this. Distribution of salaries in Brazil for Trade D. Look at that. Almost everyone earns less than 38,200 Brazilian real a year. Now, that's not 38,000 in US, that's Brazilian. And what that means is that less than 100%, almost no one makes over 7,000 US dollars a month. We go all the way to the bottom, a quarter of them earn less than, no, these numbers are off. More people earn less than that. The average, the minimum wage in this country is 1,100 Brazilian real. What that means is that minimum wage here is 200 US dollars a month. So I tell my clients that I need my clients, if they want to move to Brazil, I want them to have an income stream, be it something they do online or something they've got from home or benefits from a company. If you're making more than $300 a week, you'll be fine here. Now, brother, Ian said, with money or education, earning power, can foreigners fit into the Brazilian middle or upper class via marriage, socializing, and business? That's a trick question you're asking me. You're asking a trick question. Can foreigners fit into the Brazilian middle or upper class? You're asking, can you buy your way into class? And the answer is always no. You can't buy your way into someone's class. You can't buy your way into someone's social circle. You can't have someone come to you and say, hey, Ian, I heard you and your buddies hang out, at the bowling alley on Friday. If I give you some money, will you accept me as one of your friends? No. And if you didn't come up with those guys, they're not going to accept you into it anyway. Now, what you can do is be someone who, for example, some of you guys know I'm on Instagram. Because of who I am and what I do, I'm often asked to do things like go to the U.S. Embassy. When I go to the U.S. Embassy, well, there they see me in the same place they are, wearing a nice suit. Because to be clear, unless it's something dealing with money, I wear tank tops and white shell-toed Adidas, 100% consistent. People don't know that I'm not about that wearing a suit every day once I retired. But what I explain to people is when you're in places where the people with options are, they look at you as a person with options. And I hope that makes sense. When you're in the places where men with choices choose to be, you are accepted as a man with choices. Then you can be more accepted into who they are and what they do. I hope that makes sense. Let me see here. Go on to the next question. Let's see. Yes, Rolo. One of the things that I learned after a successful career in finances, when you show people your value, you give them the option of paying you for that value. Everything I do here on YouTube, I do because it's fun, but I'm never going to be in a position where I don't show people what I do professionally, so that if they choose to go with someone who's professional, they can come with me. Absolutely. Let's see. This I don't understand. To show a person that makes less than 7,000 just is a sales pitch. That sentence doesn't make sense. Yes, your math is correct. That's about 16,000 a year. Trey D, if you came down here as a client of mine, sales pitch, right? Just like you said, if I could help you to come to Brazil and you had $4,000 a month, I would actually stop you from spending it. I would have to sit down with you over a cup of coffee and explain to you why I wanted you to find a business investor and do something with at least half that money. There's no way I want you spending $4,000 a month in Brazil. Let's see. I retired when I was 37. That's how I left America. I may retire again, but as I rapidly approach maturity, I realize I like working. I could not have companies. And when I first left the United States and I was like, I'm going to go to China for a while, and I worked with this company out there, and I said, I'm going to go to Brazil. I'm going to hang out. And then I got bored because I love doing business. Like, I love being a businessman. I love finding things that I can do, getting good at it, creating a company, hiring staff. I don't know why I get this. So, I don't think I'm going to ever have to really, when I hang up my axe and say I'm done working, it'll probably right after I died, because I plan on being that old guy who, I'll give you a great example, Rolo. When I was a financial person, I worked with New York Life, and I worked with a few business professionals. But in any case, New York Life Insurance Company rewards its best agents, and sometimes we get to go to these retreats and conferences. And there was a young woman on stage, early 20s, talking about how we're helping our clients and we're building wealth for our own families. And, who wants to be working when they're 80 years old? And some people in the crowd went dead quiet. And a man raised his hand really slow. And you see this bony old hand go up in the sky. And he said, ma'am, I'm 85. You see, he loved his job. He loved his job. He could have quit working a long time ago, but he loved what he did. Financially, he had been set. So I look at it that way. So maybe if I fluctuate between when I retire, I would say when I retired from working for anyone who isn't named YusefWateef. Perhaps that's a better way to, let's see. The blue passport, I can tell you this is someone who's traveled the world many times. I've lived in about 15 countries. The blue passport came with many privileges. Over the past 4 years, 5 years even, we've become less special. Now, a lot of countries, let's take COVID as the most recent example. How many countries are opening up saying, we're getting our shot back together again, but we're not letting Americans in because your governments handle things badly. There was a prestige that used to come with being an American, but unfortunately, a lot of that's gone away. As one of my dear friends who comes on this channel with me sometimes, Dave, he said, right now, you've got to hold your own nuts. A salesperson for insurance to collect commission for life. Yes, so long as you're with the company, you can collect commission for life. So let's say there's someone who, I'm going to use a round number. If someone was spending $100 US a month on a life insurance policy that I wrote for them and designed for them, the first month I would receive $50, and every month after that, I think I would receive $5, something like that. So yes, and also the good thing about the life insurance industry, it's one of the few industries that you can create a good financial situation for yourself, but legally you can pass your business down to your children. I don't have any children, but I would see guys stay in the business long enough to get their business mounted up, get a book of business going, give it to their nephew or their son, and then they keep it going. So yeah, those commissions keep coming over year, over year, over year. That's why the saying in the life insurance industry is this: you work harder than you possibly should. You work harder than you'll ever work in your life for the first 5 years, but after that 5 years, you don't work that hard at all because you know the system and you've got your revenue coming in. Let's see. Brother Howard Cooper, listen, come down here, man. We got to start doing some chin-ups together. I'm saying that because chin-ups, I do my back exercise a little different. Listen, Howard Cooper, you got to find this guy on Instagram. Go ahead and put your Instagram up there so they can see your workout routines and see you as a personal coach. Like your response. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Listen, I'm balls deep. I walk in and I put my gun on the table throughout life. And while I have fewer fans and fewer friends than most men, the people who are around me are monsters. They're the other people who just want what they want unapologetically. Let's see. How difficult is it for those with U.S. technical or STEM credentials to find sufficient work to live and invest? If you had those kind of credentials, I would actually rather see you working as a freelancer for American companies than to work here, because the same job you'd have in America, getting paid in American dollars, if you had that same job here, you would be paid in Brazilian real, which would be a lot less in actual income. So what I suggest to people is, don't think of it as I have to work 40 hours a week in Brazil the same way I did in America. You could cut your salary into a quarter of what it is. You could make, let's say you're a STEM worker and you're making 80 grand a year. Or you could find a way to be a freelancer or a rep for a company and make 20,000 a year, but you would live a better life in Brazil with that 20,000 a year than you did with the 80 in America. Bam, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. No, once I left the United States, I hung up my insurance license. I decided I didn't want to do that. I still get approached about doing that. A very interesting article that I did that's related to this. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen because it's related to what we were just talking about. You see, I did an article once called Easy Brazilian Women that very much relates to the conversation we're having right now. And what I want everyone to do is check that video out when you get a chance, because it's one of those things. Let's see here. I'm going to do that, do this. No, I just do my expat relocation company. So that article is very much related to what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into it there. I hope everybody watches it, and I hope everybody gets something out of it. I hope everybody learns from that when it comes to relating to what I said about living in Brazil and getting married in Brazil. Let's see. Boom. Boom. So check that out. Once again, check out Yusef's Patreon here. If you're new to the team, go back. I discuss my Patreon and what I do for people. Are you wanted? Finn? Don't understand the question. Kyle Terry, love your stuff in Colorado. Want to move to São Paulo as soon as COVID dies down. Call me. Everyone here can find me. I'll give everybody my email address. Boom. So I say all that to say this. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time because time is your most valuable possession. And the fact that you spend time listening to me is flattering. It tells me that I'm giving quality. I need you to help me by clicking let me go back up here and I need you to click the whole like, share, and subscribe. You knew that part was coming, but I also want you to share this on your Facebook feed or share this on your Instagram feed or your Twitter feed. All right. So I hope everybody has a good night. I hope your weekends are great. And boom, glad to hear from you. I'll be looking out for that email. All right, everybody. So stay safe. Wash your hands.